Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Connect Africa. So, for tonight, I am bringing you a topic which kind of provoked me while I was reading a post from one Pan-African Pan-African channel on Facebook, and I'm gonna read to you in a minute. But before that, I want to give you this background. The African Continental Free Trade Area is expected to enter operational since 2021 already. So it has been now, 4 years? I mean, it's barely, no country is actually right now using the African Continental Trade Area, except, there are some bilateral relation in the regions, whether it's be in Eastern Africa or Western Africa, who are signing some kind of memorandum of understanding to enter to operation. But it is out of 55 member states of the African Union, it has welcomed by 54 of them. It has been signed and 47 countries have ratified it. Okay, have that in mind. Now, speaking of intra-trade in Africa, over 50% of the continent's import and exports are tied only to 5 countries' economies, and all of them are outside of Africa. Meanwhile, only 16 countries out of 54, that's like 1/3 maybe, almost 1/3, it's not even exactly 1/3. So 16 of 54 countries or African nations source more than 0.5% of their intermediate goods within the region, missing key opportunities for value-added trade and manufacturing. Okay, so you can see that it's less than actually 1/3 of the member states who are, trading amongst the African countries, and that accounts only about 0.5% of their trade. Okay, so even that 1/3 is not really trading 1% of their trade within African countries. That's how bad it is. Now let's go to this post that provoked me, to bring you this analysis tonight. I'm going to read it to you and then, continue to reflect on it. So it's all about figures. Listen to this. DRC, that's Democratic Republic of Congo, spends $136 million on oil per year from its colonizer Belgium, but its neighbor next door, Angola, is the largest or one of the largest oil producer, actually the largest oil producer in the region, that's in Southern African countries. And also Angola can be taken one of the largest producer in the world. Another fact, Malawi buys 150,000 kilograms of rice from India annually. Tanzania, next door, and Madagascar are the largest rice producers. Now, this amounts to $173 million that could rotate between the Southern African Development Community, which can build roads, educating kids, healing, those who are sick, that is to build hospitals. Now, under the South African Development Community, here are other facts. South Africa spends $197 million of dollars annually on chicken from Brazil, while Botswana, Tanzania, and Zambia combined can fill that gap for South Africa. Another fact, again, in the Southern African Development Community, Tanzania spends $13 million annually on alcohol from France and UK. That's on wine mostly. South Africa, on the other hand, has 775 million liters of wine yearly. Again, That's over this added, that's over $210 million that can help the Southern African development community or economies grow if money rotates within that region. Okay. You have, again, it continues. Angola, for example, buys milk from Portugal and New Zealand. And while South Africa is producing 3.3 billion liters of milk annually. Mozambique spends $94 million on wheat importing from Russia, while Zambia next door is producing 250,000 tons of wheat annually. So that's about 167 million yearly is spent outside of the Southern African Development Community region on things that can be bought from each other by enhancing intra-Africa trade, thereby also boosting the African continental free trade area. Now, this is, really the paradoxes of Africa. While we have everything within the continent, we are, for some reason, I mean, there are reasons for it, but not really good reasons, that we are still importing these things that are needed, of course, for the nation from outside of Africa. But the funny thing, the irony is that we are the one who are providing that raw materials to those countries outside of Africa, and then we import the finished products from those countries. So the thing is that there are a number of factors for this. For example, you can mention which is one of really the challenge of the African Continental Free Trade Area as well, that there is no free movement of people, goods, and services. So we have closed borders. So that is one of the major reason that we are bound to import these finished products from outside, even if, when we have. But the major problem is that we don't have those industries in the continent. We only can just produce the raw material, or maybe just the extraction of raw materials, in which mostly the case is that even it's foreign companies that extract even that raw materials for us, and then they're the one who are deciding the price, and then they bring it to their country, or send it to outside of Africa, and then we import the finished product from outside. And then also, even when we have those industries or manufacturing companies or refining companies in our continent or in our country in Africa, what we do is we have this mentality of a non-African product is better than African product, and we prefer to spend money on products that are more expensive and that are that are produced outside of Africa. I can bring you also other paradoxes in the continent that are happening. I mean, beside there's this export of raw materials and bringing the raw materials with at the cheapest price, and then importing the finished product with more expensive price. And with that, when we export raw materials, what happens is that also we are exporting jobs to those countries. If we are whether it's be to China or India or Europe, when you export that, you are creating more jobs for those countries who have that industries outside of Africa. So that's one fact that we happen most of the time to forget. And then the closed border, our borders are not open. While the irony is that, again, we open our borders for non-African countries. We grant visa on arrivals easily to these European citizens or the Western citizens, while we hassle and harass our own brothers and sisters in Africa, who, for example, just neighboring countries who wants to travel from one country to another country. It could be a Djiboutian citizen traveling to Ethiopia who wants to go to Addis Ababa, or a Kenyan who wants to go to Ghana. So there are some bilateral relations where African countries are granting visa on arrival, but all in all, we are more, obliged to give this visa-free arrival or visa on arrival for foreign people or Western people outside of Africa who are coming to Africa, rather than to our neighboring countries in Africa. And then with that, it does not stop there. Also, there is this, those who manage to migrate to a next African country. There's also this xenophobia. I mean, we can go and deep say that these are the reasons xenophobia comes. I mean, what is the root cause of it? It's something also debatable, but there is also xenophobia. We see that countries harassing and police also harassing African people who come from a next African country, rather than, let's be honest, a white man in the country. That person may have been there as so-called as an expert, and maybe he or she is there on their visa is maybe expired, but there is very, very little chance for that person to be stopped or to be harassed by a police in African countries. So these are some paradoxes also we can raise related to this. There's also this, we are spending our GDP on some silly, expensive imports that we don't need, or that we could have replaced with cheaper products that we can import from a next country in Africa. Or we may also as well finance our own small scale industries, farmers or producers, manufacturers, and have it with a very, very cheap price and value added on it within our own country. But so with all this, the question that comes to me is that we are really the problem. We Africans are the problem when it comes to African growth, but we always tend to point our fingers, okay, former the colonial powers. Yes, there are problems. I'm not denying that. It's definitely with us. And I mean, the enemy never sleep. There are problems in everywhere, but we are also it's also good, fair actually, to point those fingers at us, and that way maybe at least we can do what is expected from us. So from what I have now read for you, do not be concerned about the figures, but it's just that the sentiment of boosting or allowing even this Africa trade or intra-trade in Africa, because it's really, really important for us to allow that. So these are the things, really I wanted to bring you to you when I read that post from New Africa channel. So let us know in the comment section, what do you think of this? But before that, I would like really to give my own opinion. What are the solutions for this? We have to, as I said earlier, we have to the solution to boost intra-trade in within the continent is that to empower small scale producers, manufacturers, and farmers, and not only to empower, but also we have to protect them. We need to have those policies in our country. We have to protect them. I remember I came across to one research paper that, it's an NGO, actually, an NGO based in Nigeria and also in Finland, and they did this research in Nigeria, how the small scale farmers in Nigeria are forced to leave the market without being even able to pay their loans that they have taken from the government, because a Finnish government, was it Finland or Ireland, but one of those two countries for sure, I think it's Finland, this international organization decided to protect these farmers in Finland. So they wanted to dump this excessive product of the farmers in Nigeria. And for that, those small scale farmers, how did they go out of the market? Because these ones were subsidized, these farmers in Finland, and their product was sent to in Nigeria. So this retailers, they take those products, and those farmers, local farmers, are out of the business, and they took big loans from the government for them to make it to those groceries, to those supermarkets, to bring from the village to cities their product, to bring machineries, this and that, and now they're left with nothing. And that is just one example in Nigeria. That happens all over the continent. So not only we empowerments, maybe to give them loan, to give them land, to do things, but also we have to be able to protect them. Now, in our days, Trump's policy adding tariffs which are imported outside of the United States, we talk about that, and people are on this hating Donald Trump. But what will you do if Donald Trump was your president in Africa, and if he does that to protect your leader does that to protect your own local producers? Don't you support that kind of leader? Don't you want to have that kind of? I think Donald Trump is the best thing that happened for Africa, if Africa starts really to look at and to emulate what he is doing today. That's one thing. I mean, you can bring all thousands things that you can criticize Donald Trump, but he's setting a good precedent, a good example for African leaders, that they should say also Africa first. I mean, Kenya first, Burkina Faso first, South Africa first, and then Africa first in general, and then you can look at other other markets. So these are the things what we have now. Everybody's pointing fingers at Donald Trump, adding tariffs, this and that. Guess what? What will you say if that is your president? Don't you support him? Let us know in the comment section. Thank you very much again for tuning in. I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.